All right, well, welcome to this restorative upper channels work. We're going to begin. So you'll need a wall space to the back of your leg path, right, to move behind you because it might orient you to support in the bones. But you do want to have the beginning where you're in a little bit of a kneeling pattern. So a blanket under the knees or a pad probably would be helpful and encouraging if the knees are feeling a little bit of pressure. Okay, now you're going to reach forward to a bolster across the mat, and as we extend our arms, I want you to find when you do this double reach, the reason, well, you'll find out why I say double reach, because we will do singles, but as you push the feet a little bit into the wall, you might find this is an advantage to your footing, right? Sometimes when I feel the wall with the ball of my foot, this is helpful. Sometimes it's not. It just depends on how my feet are feeling. So depending on your foot feeling, you're going to lean back and just press into the hands or the forearms on the bolster. If the wrists are a little delicate or the shoulders are very tight, you might have to have your elbows on the bolster instead of your like right to the wrist and the hand. So you're going to have to decide how you progress here because we're doing a whole lot of upper channels today. Heart and lung is the beginning medley. So as we lower down, so our head is between the arms, let your waist move because your hips move a little side to side. And just simply feature the elongation and the extension feature of our arms and our back beam. Kind of think of, even though we want to open up the chest, the shoulders, the breath, our back beam, not the B-E-A-N, the back beam, the beam in the back. All right, slide the hands off the bolster, palm and palm, elbows bend, and see if you can get a feel of just lifting up into the arms. So the hands press, the spine moves into cat pose, chin towards chest, tail under. Inhale, arch. You might notice one hand a tiny bit farther forward than the other. Just let it be. See if you can focus on the spine's fluidity, the in-breath, featuring that arch in the back, the chest forward. And as you exhale, the spine motioning under. Okay, let's do single arm reaches. So you're going to turn the bolster lengthwise. Okay, I'll do the left arm first. Let's start with that so you can kind of see what is she doing with the right arm. So I'm going to push the bolster far enough forward so I can put my palm down on the bolster. Then as I lower down my head to the bolster, again, if it's too much, pull the bolster closer into you. You can also do this with your elbow bending a little deeper. And so it might seem like less, but keep in mind, we're doing quite a bit of upper body openings today. So you might want to make it just right, just comfortable enough that you can focus even for a few moments here. My right hand is stretching open, my elbow is bending, my head touches to the bolster. If it doesn't for you, well, where else is it? It's just lifted. But you might decide to let your head lean into your left arm to help the stretch deepen. Okay, now we push up. Now this is one where we want the hand, that right hand on the ground, not to stretch it back. We did something like this last time, but be careful. So when you come on up, let the left arm stretch forward, the arm that was on the bolster, let it reach forward out of the shoulder. Okay, stretch it out to the left side. And then bring it back down and switch the arm that's on the bolster. So bolster forward under right arm. Take the reach with the hand, palm down, elbow down, of course. Where else will it go? And if it's interesting for you to try to stretch your back a little further, extend the armpit, up to you. You've got a class ahead of you though, so be careful. Just let it be simple. Simply sequencing, let your head lower towards your bolster, and my left arm is bending. And you know, you could do things like lift the left arm off the ground, but it's only going to make it more intense in the right arm. So just keep it simple. Use it as a support, as an anchor. Okay, now as I lift up, I'm going to stretch my right arm forwards. Breathe. Right arm out to the side. We're doing arm check here. And then lower down that right hand. Push the bolster a little further in front, hands down, and a little wider out on the mat. So I can't get much further out with my arms with comfort. And then we're going to stretch forward into the front vine of the spine, what seems like an upward facing dog, but it's restorative. My knees are on the ground, on the blanket. Okay, keep that length in the front vine. And then as you come back through center, maybe you reach towards a child's pose. Perhaps you simply extend your tail back and let your head bow down. Maybe it touches down at the hairline. And then push down through the hands and curl and reach the chest forward and up with the throat, lifting. Okay, one more time so it's meaningful. So as we push back, we keep that reach in the arms, the shoulders. Maybe it's better for some of you to move your knees out wider, feet off of the wall, and come back to child's pose. If you want a child's pose, this is the moment. Not everybody has the knee pattern for this. So if it's the hips are up, feet are at the wall, that's perfect. Feel the back body open, upper channels. Okay, and then walk the hands to each other, okay, and grasp a block for each of them. Have the block at the low, well, actually no, mid to upper setting. If you happen to be lucky and have blocks that are really stable, you can actually probably get them a little bit higher and stabilize the hands. But you'll find as you bring the knees towards each other, the thighs towards each other, you want to feel that position of the abdominals kind of arching here. I don't really think of it like that, the abdominals arching, but it's a bit of a swoop. And then with that positioning of the hips, you're going to move the right knee forward. So scoop the knee towards the right arm and step it between the right foot, between the blocks. The foot might be a little further out than the blocks, but lift the back knee up. And as you reach through that right thigh, we're trying to keep the beginning of this practice a nice kind of warm up into the upper channels, but also we want to feel some energy into the mid body, the roots of the channels, right? The hips. Breathe. Keep the lunge very kind of basic, not overdoing a calf stretch or anything here. Just that right knee is above the ankle. And then stepping. Actually, don't step yet. Keep the left foot back to the wall. You can have the heel a little bit up. You can have the heel higher. I'm going to take my heel a little further down. So I do feel some connection into my back lower leg. And then just let the weight press down to the right foot and turn to the right and just let that right arm open out, but upwards it goes. See if you can shrug the right shoulder back. You can definitely place the right hand on your back if that feels better for you, but explore the option of just the movement quality of the waist here. Even if my right hand is on my back, I can actually still feature the opportunity to turn and then come back center, right hand on block. Notice how much you push into the hands, try to get the heart to reach forward, push off the back left foot, step the left foot forward besides the right foot, and then take a forward fold of choice. Scoot the feet out about hips distance, and you might bring the hands forward. I like the option of the bolster. I like to kind of tip the bolster up on its short end, and then my spine still has a decent amount of reaching versus rounding, okay? So the weight is pushing into my heels pretty deeply. So we'll be doing things like the wall work, right, the shoulder clock today. So this would be a good one to feel the emergence of just the weight into the heel and kind of feel the line of energy out from the heel to the side of the foot, not as much the ball of the foot here. Kind of feel that leaning into the back. Okay, if you start to lose your extension, it's a good time to move out of it. Okay, so let's take that forward fold with the hands possibly on your blocks. You can put them up on your bolster. If that's too much, you can have the blocks besides your feet. Kind of bow into the legs. So you have that alternating action in the spine, letting the weight of your brain just relax down. Okay, knees bending. See if the knees bend, they kind of push some energy into your core body. And then scoot the feet close as they can be. Right foot steps back. Heel kind of pushes to the wall, so you might have to do a little bit of scooting. And as the left foot is pressing, it might feel more than a heel now into that left foot. Feel the front of the back thigh. Noticing if it's turning out, if it's pivoting in. It's probably reacting to the foot a bit. So you could step your right foot a little bit out to the right side. You could bring it to a position so you feel a little more anchored on your balance, so not too far out. And then we'll start to turn to the left. So impress yourself with the feeling of your left heel and how it engages the energy up into that left side of the leg as you turn to the left. Be sure your right hand is supported on your block, and you can bring the left arm up. You can stretch it behind your back, but the focus here is on, so when you're turning, I want you to feel the center body turn, not so much that you're working with pushing on your block and the wall with your foot, right? So I'm getting this middle space to have some flexibility. Be a little careful on the block, right? You don't want to wipe out here. Okay, left arm can stretch up, as I mentioned, or it can stay to your back. Peek at your left knee. Is it turning out? Nope, we don't want that. We can let the left knee bend so it's extending as if it would reach towards, not over the toes at all, the ankle, but if it was to point a line, it would be kind of over that second toe. So feeling that turn, breathing. It only helps, especially right here, huh? Lower the left hand down to the block. Where will it go? And now we'll just simply step back, and you could lean your right knee down to the floor if you want. You get to choose here how you're going to step back. Some of us might come back to a downward dog. Some will come back to more of a kneeling pose. So your choice. But here's where we're going to go. We're going to start to move back to use the wall for our upper channels. So as you walk your hands on back, whether you're on the knees and you'll lift up and walk back, just watch out because the wall is there, okay? So you might have to put your blanket off to the side and scoot your feet forward. And then we'll simply bend the knees, place the hands above them, and then feel that arch through the spine come up. All right, okay. So I want you to get a belt. And you're gonna have yourself near your wall. And we'll see how my tilting powers go here. I don't want to overly tilt this. Okay, so come on back to your practice spot. I suppose you didn't really need your belt connected on this one. You maybe need to unbuckle it now, or just loosen it up so you have quite the big loop. This might work good. Two ways you can do this chest opener. You can hold on as far out on the belt as you like and lift the arms up and stretch them back behind you. Okay, so this is one. You can kind of see that. I'm hoping you can see me okay. Can you see me okay? Okay, you can hear me okay, I hope. Hopefully we're not as garbled, huh? Okay, now that would be one option. Okay, don't give up on the second option. Second option would be I take the belt, I tighten it up. It's wider than shoulder width because Iyengar would be okay if we did that maybe. Okay, so a little wider. This way you don't use your hands as much. You don't have to grip your wrist. So you can just place the arms through the belt. The tail might bother you, but you'll just reach it overhead. But if you close your eyes, you don't know that that's hanging by your face, right? So you'll keep this reach. So take a few moments to kind of go, we're only going to do this, 30 seconds longer or something. So I don't want to waste our shoulders, but kind of feel this reach pathway of the ribs. When I hold the belt, I can feel the expansiveness, but I fatigue pretty quickly with my rib motion. So you might just work on the reach up from forward, take your time, feel the compilation of muscles, rotator cuffin. Okay, and then the arms as they motion up, breathe. Whether you're holding the belt or your belt is around the arms, right? So I just have it it's above my wrist. I prefer that. And then going up, if you haven't already, let's do at least forward and up at least twice. A little softness in the knees. Okay. The shoulders have an interesting motion here. Okay, last one. All right, and then just drop your belt. If you're intrigued with using the belt for your shoulders for other stuff, go for it. We won't know. Okay, so here we go to shoulder clock, my very favorite. Okay, so you're about at least, 8 inches from the wall. You could go a little farther away. Why? Because it might be hard on the shoulder. So the farther away I go, the better it is, easier on the shoulder. The closer I go, the more challenging. So let's start with a comfortable blend of bending the knees and just kind of feeling the pressure through the feet. And bring the right arm, so my right hip is next to the wall, and my right arm's going to go straight up to 12 o'clock. So our focus is going to go from 12 to 1 to 2 and maybe 3, maybe pass on 3. That can be far. But first things first, I want you to just observe that the ribs, they flare on the inhale, and the left arm can be passive. If it's a lot on your shoulder, walk a little, just go away from the wall, right? That's all you have to do. Okay, now see if you can move the right hand up on the wall a little bit back towards 1 o'clock. What you think is 1, just kind of guess it. Okay, feeling the circulation. If you ever want to go a little further, what you'll do is you'll move your ribs towards the center away from the wall, but not your feet, right? So the deal is that my feet stay, they're right on center parallel. And then I move my right hand a little further back, and I think I'm going to stop at about 2. Yeah, I kind of like playing the game on this one, but I don't know the point of pushing my shoulder that far. So what you might work with is maybe turning your chest towards away from the wall. Just a little bit, breathe. Okay, and then just let the arm relax down from the wall and just take a moment to feel and observe. That arm's going to be it's going to feel a little longer. I suppose feeling is more important than what you see in the mirror, right? To see if it is a little bit longer and the neck is a little more length, the heart is a little more up, but it's only one side. Okay. So then we'll turn. So our left hip is next to the wall. Remember, you want to be a little distant. You don't want to be right next to the wall. I find, I just gauge it with sensation. So when my left arm goes up on this side, what I have to be careful of is if I'm too close, I tend to the left shoulder rotates back immediately. So I want you to get a feeling of the arm that's up at the wall. Make sure you got space to stretch it back too. That you do reach. Take the painting off the wall, right? That's the pose, huh? All right, and then as you hold, notice if your feet are too close here. You want to have some separation. right arm is relaxed, and then the left hand comes towards about, where will we go? We're going to 11 o'clock now. Okay, with the left hand at the wall. So feeling, this is a good way to help people learn about clocks, huh? If they go away, right, we'll keep doing this in yoga. Okay, so maybe it's different feeling on the second side for that's reality, huh? So you might have to walk yourself a little further away from the wall, and then see if you can finally let that left hand lower down to maybe 10 o'clock. Yeah, the furthest you go would be 9, but if you think of it, if you even went further down, it might be easier. So if it's a little spicy in there, or all of a sudden it's tingly, it's a good idea to back off and go back up with the hand. That's just reality. You might turn your ribs towards away from the wall. You might turn your head, stretch through the collarbones. Oh, of course, you could shrug your shoulder on the right side if you feel that helps you create motion in the ribs. The bowling ball at the top of your spine is the challenging piece, isn't it? So feeling if you want to tilt your ear towards your shoulder. Okay, now when we shift away here, let the left hand touch the wall, then turn to the wall with the right hand and take a wall dog pose. See if you can find the most comforting blend for the shoulders, not too far up the wall or too far down. Just feel the hips move back. Upper channels. Okay. Now we walk towards the wall. We turn towards towards your practice space, and then I want you to let your seat touch the wall and take that forward fold. And we'll start to move ourselves back down onto the mat. You might decide to just leave the blanket on the side yard because we'll be using it for our horizontal chest opener in a few moments. So walk on down crawl on down, you could say, to the mat, and take the feet back towards the wall. Heels maybe touch. And then as you reach forward, you're going to try just to stretch the hip flexors here, the front vine, right, the quad area. So pull the bolster towards you. And if you find it better to just lie on the bolster like this, elbows down in Sphinx pose, if your knees don't tolerate any pressure, this is a good option. But try to keep the chest forward, the throat forward. Otherwise, hands press, and then feel the arch of the spine and that extension of the hips here. Oh, this feels pretty good. So I like to lift up my knees sometimes on this if I can, but for this moment, I got lucky and they went up, but they don't always do that. Okay, so keep that reach of the front. Breathe, really feel the detail of arching, even if your elbows are on the floor. Okay, surrender the knees. And then as you come back to table, I want you to take a hold of your blankets. Now, I think most of us are using 2 quarter folds on this for our horizontal chest opener, but you are probably already a little bit open in the chest from what we did. So you might find this stack up is too much. But start with comfort, and then we'll add our block. So what we'll need nearby is a ball, a belt that's connected, well, you can connect it when you get to where we're going, and a block, and the bolster. So let's place the block. So, see if you can see me okay. Can you? Yeah, now we're better, huh? Okay, much better. Maybe too far down, but we'll go. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so let's sit back. This is what we've all experienced in most class openers. So we're going to sit on the block at the tailbone, and then we'll lower back. And if you're too close to the wall, you will find out now. Okay, so push back enough so that your feet could touch the wall, and careful that it's not uncomfortable in your tailbone. All right, well, I'll take this blanket stack. This is cozy enough. So when you're back, You're going to head your sand across the thighlids. And then you have to struggle with the sandbag sometimes. So the sand can go low. You might find that it's at the, feels like it's just the front of the pelvis here, but you know, it's all connected. So if you want to have the sand closer to your front hip bones, perfect. You run into a little danger if your sand is, it just starts to slide down and the knees really hyperextend. So you better be a little cautious on that. But likely the wall will help that. So the bones will have a little resistance. So if I didn't have the feet at the wall, my knees would probably just kind of sink through here. Sinking knees. If you don't prefer sand here, you can always place it up at the ribs. Perfect option. That just seems right for me today. I don't know why, it just seems like it'll feel better there. So careful on the blanket. Too much blanket is actually ends up not being a good thing on your back. So you get to decide your blanket height and then stretch open the chest. So let the eyes relax back and we'll begin. Okay. In a traditional restorative now. So the feet could be separating a little bit with time, noticing if your feet go a little bit apart, it's almost more comforting for your back. The little things that matter. The shoulders, of course, are on the back zone, but just feel if there's any reality of your shoulders kind of pushing back and curling under to the bolster. I know we know our front body can round. I mean, we know so much about the postural slump option, but really feel if you could do the opposite with your shoulders, like they would kind of contour the bolster, almost like they're trying to clutch it, and giving yourself that feeling of just letting gravity have you. So feeding the body, nourishing it with good breath. That's what we start with. That's kind of it, isn't it? That's general living, nourishing with breath. The first and the last nourishment is breathing. Okay, now feel the difference when the feet walk in, the knees bend a little further. Just notice the difference in your back. Now I feel like a percentage of ease. So if your sand is on your thighlids, it's going to slide up, isn't it? It's just going to kind of empty in the belly. And if you don't want, sand belly, then you can bring the sand higher or toss it to the side. Okay, so sand either stays at belly or it goes up. Let's take a figure 4, walk the feet a little closer. I don't know how close your feet are, but probably separating them, but maybe a narrow hips distance. And then bring the right foot up and cross that ankle to the left knee, and the right knee swings open. Okay, we're going to keep the foot on the floor, the left foot at least, not the right. And just manage the breath here. If you happen to keep your sand, it's a little weight training for your lungs, but notice if you have an ability to tolerate that. If the tolerance is nigh, you can always slide it off your ribs. Okay, so if you can let that left foot press down to the ball, lift the heel a little bit, put some circulation up the lower leg bones. And then just let the heel relax down. And then now that heel gets to lift. So we'll take the right foot off of the left knee, uncross, bring the left heel up and cross it to the right knee. The left knee, it hopefully pivots open. Okay, if it's going to happen, the knee's going to stretch outwards and the inner leg, there's kind of circulation starting to churn from the knee, circulating down to the inner thigh. Opening up the arms, goalpost, or just straight out to the sides, however it works. Supply the body with oxygen. And the sand slows you down, right? That's kind of what it's going to do to your breathing. It's going to slow it, deepen it. So that's one reason I like it on the ribs. It kind of gets me to slow down. I can even feel it like in the face, the skin cells in that area just kind of softens. Okay, right heel lifts up. You can feel the ball of the right foot, maybe scatter places of touch with the foot touching and the heel lifting. Hopefully this is comforting on the knee, on the right knee, the heel lifting. And then just lower that right heel down, and we're going to get them both upside down, both heels. So take the sand off for the moment, okay? And have your ball nearby, okay? You'll need that soon. And then uncross the left foot from the right knee and ask the feet scoot in a little bit. They might scoot outwards so the knees feel safe. The arch of the spine is going to change. So all you're going to do is reach to the handles on the side of your bolster. You're going to lift up the hips into a bridge pose, and then just a little bit of movement of the bolster down under the lumbar spine. I would be careful not to push it too far downwards, right? So you might find, okay, I went too far down. So I'm going to move my bolster so I can really feel it hooked in the arch of my back. So what I feel when I'm on my back is that this whole area here in the mid, the thoracic, is feeling a nice lift up from my lumbar spine and the arch. The block isn't necessary to keep there, but it's there, so I'm not going to do much with it. But I want to feel not my tush on my block, though. That's a sign I definitely didn't move this enough. So if you still feel your rear touching your block, you've got to get the bolster to move a little further down. Then when you find out it works, your legs go up and you can do this. If your abdominals are, and you only need one blanket under your head for this one, don't have two, only one. If you found that this movement quality is fine, but your abdominals are feeling terrorized here and they just cannot compute, then you might have to get the bolster a little farther up. So you got to play with it. It's a measurement of the rule of the ribs. You can feel the ribs flare. Okay, get a ball. All right, so just let the legs move a little bit apart, and you can tell if you look at feet and the movement around the ankle to the knee, it's definitely splays out a bit. So if I place the ball between the knees, especially when the legs are straight-ish, yeah, it's kind of interesting to kind of wedge it center. And then as I bend the knees, if you can just bend them to a point where you almost don't perceive it as pressure across the knee. So you don't have to like hinge all the way and crease. You might find, okay, I'm just going to play with the littlest bend, maybe a little more, but so I'm not going to feel the effect of pulling on the bone as much. So I'm squeezing into the ball. Yeah, that's when you have to kind of make sure the ball's in a good spot. You can squeeze. Arms open out. Either like cactus, goalpost, or straight out to T. And then let the knees switch side to side. And it's starting to feel a little churning in the core body. Okay, the ball stays center. You don't have to purposely squeeze it, but you do push into it when your knees go to one side, right? Give yourself that freedom to just use what gravity offers you when you go knees side to side. So I feel my hip lift up when I cross my knees over. So if my knees go left, my right hip is up, the rear is off of the bolster. And you might enjoy a little bit of kind of sweeping, so you feel a little bit of contour. So my knees move away, and then as I move them to the side, towards the arm, okay? So scooping motions. Okay, noticing the back muscles cooperating, maybe closing your eyes. And creating that reach of the spine. This is so nice to get the spine to just gently manipulate those areas in sort of a fun way, you know? You can do some skillful work just with the ball centering, keeping the back supported, the spacer, right, the ball between the knees supports my lumbars. And as you come back in center, take a moment. Now my feet have really dropped. And if you haven't, they started kind of high, and pretty quickly they just dropped because I just went with whatever felt right. Some of you, they may still be high because you're protecting. Maybe it feels like you have pain or something around part of the knee. So you might find if your feet are up during the exercise, it's just easier, right, as far as comforts go. So whether your feet are up or the feet are down, squeeze the ball and release. Take about 4 squeezes. Ball squeezing. Ball squeezing. Okay, so the next time you pulse into the ball, just with that energy through the inner leg, let's bring the knees a little bit closer to the chest. It doesn't mean you have to hinge at the knee as much. You can fling the feet up too. And then take the ball out. Don't let the knees fall on you, okay? And take a belt and make sure that there's a big loop. Well, that's not a very big loop, is it? Okay, so make the belt so there's a big enough loop to start out for wide stance. That's probably good enough. I get a little ambitious on that, but it's probably best I just let the legs have that reach. If the bolster doesn't feel supportive enough, remember you can always, move it higher, right? You can take your belt off, move it a little higher. It's generally not something you want low, though. Almost never see that in restorative manuals. That looks like the tailbone's almost at the edge, right? Or it is at the edge. It's just not on the floor. Okay, so, and you can do any of these practices. I use the bolster without a bolster. Okay, you can just have a blanket under your pelvis too. We're trying to get an inversion while we're doing this sequencing, so that we have the pelvis lifted, the heart below, so we have that benefit for the heart health. So, and the lymph drain. So as my feet are in this wide stance, I want you to get a feeling of the legs move a little bit away from your center line. Okay, you can have the belt loop wider, you can go further out, you can hold the belt. If this feels a little challenging, you can always widen up the loop and hold on to it if it's shaky. Okay, now bend your knees so that you can grab a hold of a part of the belt to pull back towards the navel center. So that's the key, is I'm going towards navel center with my belt. I'm not going to touch my navel with the belt. That's not a good goal for that one. But my elbows are kind of casually out to the sides. Okay, now my feet are getting closer and closer. So I'm going to slide the feet together as I pull the belt towards my heart. And now, as I get the belt a little bit bigger of a loop, I'm going to start to work my way towards brain float. Okay, so have the buckle, remember, off to the side. You can always pull on the tail to cinch it up. But I want you to let the left foot lower down out of the belt and then reach the belt to the occiput, so the center of the back of your head. Okay, so feeling when you have that hold that maybe the left knee bends. Maybe you stay with this opposite leg sand free, but maybe you put your sand on the left thigh too. So I love this variation where I have my sand on the top of the thigh that's not up in the belt, right? I suppose you could hang the sandbag handle on your foot and have quite an interesting stretch, but let's be good on the knees here. So this could be the same knee offering. I could bend my knee further, and not have the belt so tight, you know, so much restriction. Of course, the belt's going to be taut here, but you might find you have to change it regarding the knee. But do let your head lower back. So give yourself plenty of slack here. Give it some slack so that your head can lower down. Even if it hovers over the blanket or it touches the blanket, you still get some good traction. Even if I'm touching down on the blanket. I know some of you want to have your head up higher and have traction, but feel the funny parts of the foot here. I don't know what the funniest part of the foot is, but you know, noticing if it's always right at that arch for you for this pose. And maybe you move it to the heel sometime. Maybe you move a little higher up on the foot. Maybe you move your foot in the belt. I mean, how often do you get the opportunity to have something supporting your foot like this, your brain, and you can fidget around with your foot? Okay. Making yourself pretty hardy this way, I think. So left foot relaxes. Right foot is active. And feel the abdominals flow with the breath. Okay, reach the hands to the back of your head. Kind of guide so the belt's at least above the occiput. Maybe it's all feels like it's curling the neck a bit, huh? But it's not on the neck. No belts on necks here. Okay, so slide the sand off if you have that, and then switch the foot that's up. Now, caution for hyperextension. See, you can almost tell it just kind of swings the back of the knee. So even if it feels okay on your knee, it's just not something we're going to try to recommend, right, for the future of the leg. So as I switch my left foot up into the belt, you can keep the right knee bending so the bottom of the foot stays on the floor the whole pose. Right? If this foot on the ground stabilizes your left leg, right, so it doesn't, if I push down with the right leg and put sand, it changes the gravity of the situation for the lifted leg. It's interesting because when my knee bends, it situates my pelvis, and then when my leg extends, it kind of drags one side down. So I think they're both pretty good. I like to remind myself that sometimes that more easy knee bending might be the intelligent choice. Okay, so those of us that are sanders are going to go, well, here I go. I'm going to put my sandbag on the top of the right thigh. Right, as far as yoga goes, here we go. The left leg lifting, and then careful with the neck. Right, you might have to get your senses here with letting your head lean back. Right, it's pretty mobile up there, so feel the arms maybe open. The mid-body can move comfortably with breath. Keep feeling, noticing the second leg in this exercise, right? The leg that's down might be turned out more, it might not be. So just feel the patterns that are at the extremities. And then the place that you can make the change first is usually from your center, right? Your pelvis, the abdominal area. It can always use kind of efficient support here with this angle. So if my head is lifting a little bit, at this point, I'm just going to slide my sand off my thigh. If my foot is on the ground, bottom of the foot on the ground, that's what I mean, then you don't have to move anything with the sand. You're like, I think my foot's on the ground. Don't you have your foot on the ground? Okay, so hands hold the sides of the belt and the sides of your head and lower your head down to the blanket. Right hand reaches up to the belt and cross it over. Now the left leg, I want you to just notice you can keep it bending, but you can actually extend it a little bit, but have a bent right leg so the left leg crosses over with a little more ease in the hip. Just recently we had the ball between the knees and we were moving side to side, right? And the legs were obviously bending, right, to acquire the ball. So it's not that different here as far as how my hip can ascend. I suppose it's kind of descending because it's going down to the leg, but the idea of the hip kind of lifts just the right amount, not too much. The hip doesn't have to climb a mountain right now, it's just tilting. And then bend the left knee, come back center with the leg straight up, and then move the right foot up into the belt, lower the left foot down, and then swing that right leg over to the left, holding the belt with the left hand. Yeah. All right, so I already found myself in a little challenge here. My bottom leg is not bending as much. So if I start to hinge at that left knee and I just bend the knee, I can feel that stretch through the outer right thigh, and the right arm can be open, and your head might roll to the right. And just feel the sensation in the ribs, down through the hip, and the whole area in between, right? Ribs and hip, right? The abdominal organs moving with the breath. Okay, so this should take us into this right side body pretty nicely, I think. So what we'll do is we'll bend the right knee. Let's try that. Slide the belt off the foot. Unless you decide you want to take the legs up and do a little leg tantrum, it actually is always helpful to do a little leg tantrum, especially from being on your back, right? You're not stomping on your feet. They're just up in the air. They're not being stepped on for the last few moments here. Okay. So as the knees hinge, right, kind of feel how you might rely on these knees so much to get movement. So just try to rely a little bit on the center, right? It probably doesn't feel the same as a knee does as it matures, right? Maybe it does, but you're gonna roll to the left, watch out for blocks below you, and then come on down below the bolster towards the wall, and then take your block and then move it behind you. So we're back overhead. So we're gonna scoot our way to side sage. So we're gonna take our sand over next to the left knee, side of the mat. I think you might use 1 or 2 blocks. I mean, at most you use 2, but what I like to set up for is to be sure I'm distant enough from the wall so I don't touch the wall with my foot. But we'll stack up a couple blankets. If you use like thinner blankets, you might have to fold the top one up. You know, mine seem to, one of them's thin and one of them just keeps getting puffier. So you can decide if you even want to use this many. I think the height of the bolster is definitely almost too high for this, right? Kind of think about blankets packed down pretty well, bolsters don't. So we're gonna have the ball maybe. Some of you know you don't need a ball on this, so don't get it if you don't use it. But place the ball possibly on the inside of the right knee, and I'm gonna lean up next to the bolster. So I find I get in this habit of pushing my elbow down in the very beginning. So I'm gonna try to get my hand on the other side so that I can wedge this bolster between my thigh, right, and my ribs kind of round up over it. Okay, so are we ready, side sagers? Okay, take a sandbag to the external, hopefully external, not internal hip, huh? It should affect your hip. And you can also put your sand up higher on the ribs and then reach the right arm over to the block. Okay, remember, you can stack your blocks. I have just one on the highest setting, but you can always put a block lower and just stack them so you have a little bit more comfort in the shoulder. Okay, but if this doesn't feel like it's the energy is spiking in the shoulder, you'll know if it's too much, right? Throbbing. Okay, If it's throbbing in the shoulder, then you need to go higher, right? You'll feel more comfortable. Or you can put your arm down on the blanket or the bolster or your side, okay? But let your weight of your brain relax into the blanket. That's the most important part, I think. Okay, the left arm is relaxed. The whole upper left channel is resting. However, the right side is working a little bit with the feature of lengthening. So the spine extends, the hip extends nicely. So feeling if you are relaxing around the tailbone or if you're trying to push the tailbone under, just let it be neutral here. Breathing. Emptying on the out breath. And you might even find the neck grips again, right? So the weight of your head is a really important part of this one, is to let the head go. Maybe if you turn, down towards the front, that works for some people, but I find most prefer to roll the back of their head to relax the neck. The upper collarbone area. So that doesn't mean that the right hand holds the block anymore, but it could be the right hand is down on your side too, right? You could be touching your ribs, you could be touching your sandbag. You could let your head just move a little bit side to side, or keep it on its side. The last few moments. Okay, now slide the sand off that core. Even if it's hip, it still kind of moves and mobilizes this mid frequency right in the center. And let's just take a few moments to move into that center beam, the center beam. So taking the hips back up center to sit and get your belt, okay? And I want you to make sure that, well, the loop doesn't need to be that ambitious here, but you're gonna have it in a loop, connect it, and place it behind you, overhead around your back. It's just gonna drop to your pelvis anyway. But I want you to bring it up so that you can connect the belt to your feet. I know, don't think about what it is, just practice it. Tighten it up enough so when you lean back, you're not going to be trying to find your balance, right, as much. So the belt's high up. I have my belt high up here. I've seen people, though, that have, if you find that doesn't work for you, it could be many reasons. It could be scar tissue. It could be just pain. It could be, I was told not to put anything in this area lymphatically, right? Not good for everyone. So you could put it across the upper arm. I like this a lot. And then reaching forward. I know it feels like it would be better if it's in the armpit zone, but this is pretty good. So try the modification sometimes. The thing is that your arms can't reach, right? It's not quite the same. So you just don't have to work as much. Okay. Or it's to the armpit, and then you go try to get the heart to lift. Just a few moments. If the belt is too loose, you gotta bring your feet back down, tighten it up again, make sure it's connected. Yeah, tie it in a bow if it's not staying, if the thread's not holding. Yeah. Yeah, some of us have, you ever try it though around the arm? No? Yeah. I mean, I know it feels like you're sort of stuck, like I can't move my arms, but I kind of like it. It seems a little bit serious, doesn't it? Like kind of militaristic, but all right. Well, it's good to feel all these different qualities in the bones. Okay, fine tune it. Now hold on to the belt and then bend through the legs and take the belt off. Okay, around you it goes. place your sand. I know we got another side stage. See, I told you I was gonna run out of time today, but we're gonna do all the things we do. Place the sand on your feet. Okay, you're sitting up. Basically, you're trying to just sit on those sitting bones. They're still working. Sand on the feet, hold the handles. If you have sandbag handles, it's kind of nice. Bring your feet as close as they're gonna go. This is about it. My feet are as close as they can go unless I step on them. And I'm just leaning back so my arms are holding. My knees separate. This doesn't mean we're gonna bring our feet up in the air. You can tell that could be an exercise, right? Holding your sand. I just think that's a little harmful on the knee. I don't find that the smartest move for my knee. So I just hold on to the sandbag handles. You can also let go of the sandbag handles and lean back. It's pretty good. And no natural range of back is it's going to try to curl, right? So just feel the weight moving back towards the tailbone, right? You can feel that area kind of press down and be a little bit awkward. And then feel if you can move your knees together. Now, if you're holding the handles, then it's kind of easier, I think. But if you move the knees together, arms straight forward besides the knees, full reach with the palms, and then press down into what? Right? Your tailbone or your feet. Okay, push into your feet if you can. Pull yourself forward. And then take the sand off your feet over to the right side of your mat. I know it's not that funny, but might as well laugh about it. Okay, pivot to the right hip because it's a challenge. But oh, does it feel good to stretch out your core after that? So take a ball if you like on the inside of the left knee and then lean down to that right side. Again, I got in my habit. I put my elbow on a bolster. So lean down like you're getting the hug in your sides. It's like this side area needs some love. So reach across with the waist and then take your sandbag onto that left hip, okay? Let the right arm be between the bolster and the blankets. I know sandbags are not required, so if you don't use this, it's fine, okay? It's completely fine. But if you do have the sand, maybe you kind of push it a little bit down to feel through that side, the bones, from the hip bone to the ribs. Left arm overhead. I think some of us like this reach, but if it's not a good one for you, or if it's too much, right, you can put two blocks. One could be flat like that. One could be at the third setting, and you can nudge it away so it works just right for you. Okay. Yeah, all in all, this is furniture yoga, right? So we're using all kinds of things from it. Really, truly, it is furniture yoga. So the left arm is reaching, the weight is resting into your side. Yeah, you could scissor kick the right leg, kind of reach out through the hip. You could play with that. But for now, just feeling the weight into that right hip. Breathing slow. Exhale completely. Yeah, feeling where the weight is into that right hip. Of course. And then as you let that left arm either stretch open so the chest opens out a little bit, you will move on to the back of your head. That might be interesting for your neck, like more comforting. You know, on one side of the neck, even though I know they're awfully close quarters, really might respond different because of things in your posture, your chest, you know, issues in the tissues, all those things, huh? Yep, if you've lived in your body long enough. The body keeps the score, right? Okay, I can feel a little bit of the pec kind of, you know, right in this really highly lymphy zone where it's kind of boggy. So you can always palpate that area and just kind of feel where it's tender. I wouldn't overstretch it though. I don't think that that's wise for the joint, period. But when you roll back in, you might move your elbow around, kind of circulate to the kind of that humeral rhythm. It's kind of nice to just move the elbow. Rolling shoulders is always good for us. And roll to that right hip. Okay, now we're going to come on up. We're going to stay seated, and I want you to move your bolster a little closer to the wall and take a seat on top of the bolster so that you can reach back to touch the wall. Okay, so it's going to be very individualized, right? I can't give you a measurement, even if I got out measuring tape and said, this is your distance, I'm just a different height, right? So what I find is if I place my my hips right until, let's say, take a cobbler's pose so you can get started with this. So soles of the feet together-ish, right? I don't have the whole imprint of my foot together, but my feet are touching. And then I reach back with each hand to the wall, and I should be, I would say, use it so you have that spidering the fingers open, right? Not like slam the heel of the hand in, just the right amount. Okay. Now I want you to take your block. This is key. So the things you're going to use is a block and a wall. So you're going to bring your left leg to bending. Now, let's say your knee doesn't bend like this today. You can do things like put a ball under the knee, or you can have the leg straight out to the left side to about 11 o'clock. It's a good option, isn't it? Your right leg might have the same patterns of challenge, but we'll see. We're going to push the block forward so it's at the lowest setting and place the right foot on top. I so hope I'm not too far away from this wall, but I love wall twists. Okay, so I hope you get something out of it. So have your sand on the left upper thigh like a hip hugger. Please don't put it on your knee, okay? So it's an anchor. So I find, like, I want, I mean, I'm putting on the left hip, but you really kind of wrap it around so that you have a little challenge to sit up. So it's like your abdominals are going to want to round down, but you're going to have that sand as a barrier. So when you try to sit up with the heart, it's like, okay, I'm grounded on the left hip, whether the leg is straight out or bending. Okay, just swing the arms up. So don't hit your hands on the wall or the floor, but see if you can just swing the arms up. That might mean my hands are straight up from the shoulders. They may be kind of a little forward, and they may be arching, flexing. Spine could arch, arms can flex. But as you're reaching here, I want you to get a feel of maybe closing your eyes in the breath. Closing your eyes on the breath, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, now let the left hand touch down to the floor, or maybe you have a wall space over there. Stretch the right arm over the right side of the face. Be a little ginger on this one. So when I reach with the right arm, what I'm going to start to encourage you to go towards is just to sit up tall on the sitting bones now, and then bring the left hand to the right knee and reach the right hand back to the wall. So you can open up to the fingers, right? Don't slam the heel of the hand into the wall. This way, you're not kind of jamming up into the shoulder. You're trying to move your ribs. So the rib motion is to kind of counter spin. So you can tell this one can always get improved. So I'm trying to actually get my head to turn, right? You can tilt your ear to your shoulder, but see what you can do with your brain on top here and the rotation. Take a few moments. Okay, now come back, center, take a forward fold, hands to the bolster or hands reaching to each other, interlacing your fingers, and lean forward to stretch into the right hip. Again, I know some of us might find this block under my foot is just getting to be too much. You could always just push it away, have your foot on the floor, have the block under your knee. You know, there's plenty of options here with this block. It doesn't have to be under your foot. It does become a little bit more intense, right? I think for the stretch, but you got to make your own choices here, huh? Okay, now come back on up. One side down. Okay, right foot comes down. Kind of feel that contour from the hip down across the knee into the lower leg parts, the lower channels. place the sand on the right thigh, left foot goes forward on the block, pretty easy. And we let the right leg either be supported with a ball under it or a block. Your other block could be there too. If the ball's like too low for me, I don't have my right foot, I'm not pulling it that close to the groins, but you certainly can. Some benefit to that is if it is comfortable going towards like that half lotus, and it feels okay, fine, but it may not give you that many benefits as time goes on, right? It might be displacement, right, for the knee. So we want to find this inner right thigh has circulation, like you could grasp a hold and kind of turn it so you're rotating it. So if my ball is gone, see, that's going to rotate out nicely, but I'm just a little careful on my knee here. I'm just going to be cautious. So sand goes high. We go up with the arms, okay? And then let your right hand lower down to the ground or a block if you like. Left arm stretches over the left side of the face. Breathing. Because we have to. Okay. Now stretch up with the left arm and turn to the left, right hand to the left knee, left hand back at the wall. See if you can feel the energy of the ribs moving a little bit to the left so that you don't you don't fall back, right? You want to land on sitting bones, of course. And then it's this middle body that likes to slouch, right? It just likes to dump down. So you're trying to breathe some life into the ribs and help that articulate that kind of inner spiral of the spine. Yeah, be careful how you clutch your knee. Maybe you're down on the shin, just below the knee here. Breathe. Left hand, remember the shoulder clock we did early, right? We had the hand at 12, then we turned it. So this one, it's probably turning the fingers towards 9 o'clock, right? The thumb might be at 3. Maybe your hand can move that way. Maybe it doesn't like it. Maybe you have a fist to the wall. Who knows? There's different ways to do this for the wrist. So a fist would be more comfortable for some people with wrist stuff, right? Come back, center, hands on the bolster or interlace your fingers, stretch the chest open and lean forward. Okay. So we've set our back up nicely for the final spinal here because we're going to go kind of deep into the hip and then inversion. So just notice when you lean forward here, this is ideally a hip stretch, but some of us might not feel like we get quite into that area. Just think of the things you got to look forward to, huh? So come on up. I don't know about that, huh? Okay, place the sand on the side yard. Careful, let's see. Sand goes to the right, towards the right knee. And you're going to place the bolster now. Come down off the bolster. Put it over to the right side of your mat when you look to the wall. And then let's fine tune this. So we're going to have one blanket and place it in a quarter fold or lower underneath your head. And you're going to lie back so you're away from the wall. Your head's not at the wall. You're away. And you'll cross that left leg over to the bolster on the right side and place the ball to the sacrum area. And then maybe add sand to the outer left thigh. Okay. I think we're going to get this whole sequence almost crafted well. Okay, sand on the exterior. Don't worry if the sand kind of drops off the other side a little bit. That might be like especially good. It's a good artistic move, I think, for this one. So, just notice the bones are contoured, right? There's curve. So kind of feel where you can be a little bit more curved here, bending the bottom leg. Feel the move out of the back into the left hip. Let the left elbow release open, maybe in a goalpost position. And most likely the weight of your head will roll left. But perhaps some of us prefer it centered and really get it perfectly centered. And the right hand could be relaxing in your belly body so you can feel that lower belly motion. Or up into the left ribs. Sink into the ground. You know, if you feel like you could use more sand on this, that might be something you explore, just finding, you know, you can put a blanket on top of the thigh and the sand, and maybe if you have like anything else that has a little bit of weight on it for future sessions, this is a good one to add weight to. So just kind of letting the tissues on the side of the thigh feature that lengthening. Definitely relax around the tailbone. And then as you shift sides, you know, kind of notice the leg reach is like if it's like if it was a great kicking leg to something. So it's that move out of your back muscles. So when you take the ball to the side yard, then the sand, you might want to just like let the leg kind of reach out of the hip, like you're going to just kind of kick your knee to the right side. A little bit of kind of swinging motion from the hip joint, just feeling movement there. And then carefully you roll onto your back of your pelvis. And then maybe you take the knees to point up. I like to have the knees rest towards each other and the feet apart between sides. I don't want to shock the sacrum. So I want to just have the lower back comfortable and naturally arched. And then I change sides. So the left leg is going to relax and move the bolster to the left side of the mat. And if you need a wiggle over to the right side of your mat, then you can swing the right leg over, right? You want to have a good range of kind of that kick out of the hip here. And so play with that, whether you come in and out of it, you know, several times, but feeling the arch and then moving the ball to that sacrum as well as the sand, not the sand on the sacrum, but to that right thigh. If you don't use sand, you feel plenty without it, then that would be a reason not to. There's plenty of sensation without. But the sand can feel just grounding. That's, I think, the key is the grounding nature of the sand and that traction. So really feeling that inner environment, like that's the world that you want to be in, your inner environment sensation. Especially towards the end of the practice, kind of tune in deeper. Yeah, any body sounds, right, will eventually fade away, or they'll kind of stay in one location, right? Sometimes they'll happen to us, so just noticing those, breathing, kind of sweeping the lungs with the breath. Maybe your head rolls to the right, and you might even feel different types of pressure on the back of the skull on the second side. It's kind of interesting, just the movement in our hip can be so different on one side that it pulls up the back, so you can feel your upper back muscles stretching. This is a great kind of full body stretch. It's not just a hip thing, it's kind of an everything, huh? Okay, now when we get ready to shift out, we're going to basically get right to the wall, legs up the wall. So try to keep your consciousness focused on, after all these twists, to just flush it out, right? The legs have been kind of downwards. Now they're going to be upside down. You're going to be upside downwards. So move the ball, the sand, push the sand towards the wall. So it's extra easy to get the sand up your feet now. Roll to the left, or the right, whichever direction you like to roll out into coming up to your seat, and then make the way to the wall. So the bolster is connected, the hips go up. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to think of ways you think about getting into this could affect your ease and transition, right? You don't have to be mathematical about it, but you could just kind of feel that you're on the edge of the bolster, you're almost sitting on the ground now, and then swing up. Oftentimes this is taught, and I don't want to sit into it, but in Virasana style, some people teach this, you sit in Virasana, right? You bow down, you move over to the blanket, and then you roll up, which if your knees can do that, it's actually kind of elegant. So if that's a way that goes well for you, you can play with those variations. I've seen some creative ways people get to the wall, but that got me a little too close almost. So now I'm gonna move my bolster a little bit away from the wall, just a tiny bit. And then my seat kind of nestles between the bolster and the wall. So I have a great arch in the spine. Okay, then I'm going to take a sandbag and place it at the soles of my feet and then extend up. Okay. Yeah, feeling what works with the thigh bone. So if you're a little distant from the wall, that feels like a nice opportunity. Some of us really like to be right against it. It just feels like it's only going to be good from there, I guess. Okay. But the blanket, you could tuck it right towards the shoulders. Get yourself comfortable with your clothing. You don't want to feel like it's too snug at your throat or anything. And then expansiveness, just the right amount with the chest. Just this pure, simple openness for the upper circulation, right? We let the legs kind of get that drain as far as a lymphatic circulation, right? This really sets us up for gravity to help the lymph flow towards the chest. It drains to the chest, right? And then it basically enters the bloodstream and towards the organs of elimination. So it's a very good pose for lymphatic, then the immune system, of course, and your vascular system. So let the belly try to move a little with the breath, feel it pulsing, and the arch through the spine. Feel if the belly is moving, and then notice if the ribs are pushing out. See if you can blend just that perfection of ribs and then belly lifts. It drops down and centers towards the heart. So clearly the diaphragm does transition towards the space, kind of at the base of the heart. But this be possibly good for our knees, right? The draining of that fluid retention, some of the inflammation that can live around a knee. If you need to do this without sand and that's easier for the knee, that's fine. Breathing through the nose, relaxing out through the mouth or through the nose. This is a perfect time to focus on nose breathing. And granted, it's a little more challenging on when your legs are upside down, but when else will you challenge that and see if that feels kind of starts to become more of a muscle memory with your breath and your body, kind of embodying breathing. So feel the arch of the spine, move your feet away from the wall, and then you can either drop the sand overhead, you can bend your knees, and then bend them a little more, and then reach up with your arms to the hands holding the sand and slide it away. And then guiding your feet, I like to take a final, just heels at the wall. And it's a little maybe tingly in your feet. So you can tell this works, right? The blood moves from the extremities down to the vital organs. So we know this is doing what it's supposed to do if it feels like that. It's kind of an obvious change in circulation. Now the heart is full for you. Okay. So with the heart open and carefully resting, heart rate lowers, blood pressure lower. You can either stay in the shape longer, you're welcome to do that, or just let the knees bend and feel that the hands hold the backs of the thighs, and maybe a little rocking on the back of the pelvis without too much pressure in the knee. Just kind of feel that side to side, your center of mobility, your pelvis. And then just roll to the side that you never rolled to. How about that? And then come on up, if maybe it works, and take a seat so that we have our hips back. Almost feel like you're, when you're in cat cow and you push your tail back to the arch, kind of feel a little arching, feel shouldering, and that there's boulders at the top, right? The shoulders, and then the neck lifts up out of the shoulder base, right? Hands to the heart. Deliver focus here for yourself. What feels like it would be a calling to wellness for you. Breathing that in. And exhale. Bowing into that space behind your heart. And gratitude